This is not a confession. It is not a diary. It is a schedule, a meticulous log of a life that was designed to be forgotten. This single piece of paper is one of the only artifacts left behind by a woman who, for all official purposes, never existed. And it documents the final days before her complete and total erasure. Every case file in this archive documents an anomaly, a deviation from the predictable patterns of human behavior. But the contents of this box are different. They tell the story not of a single act, but of a sustained, systematic process of self-destruction. This is the file of the Isdal Woman.
Our story begins here, November 29th, 1970, the Isdal Valley near Bergen, Norway, a place locals sometimes call Death Valley, not only for its treacherous terrain in winter, but for a history of suicides in the Middle Ages. It's a place where people have historically gone to disappear. It was here that a university professor and his 2 young daughters, hiking on a Sunday afternoon, followed a strange, sweet smell of smoke.
To a horrifying discovery: the partially burned body of a woman, nestled between several large rocks. The scene was bizarre. There was no campfire, no sign of an accident. It was a tableau, a deliberate arrangement. The initial police report noted its ritualistic quality. The first anomaly: the woman was surrounded by items: a watch, an umbrella, 2 empty bottles. But anything that could identify her had been either burned or surgically removed. Her labels from her clothes were cut away. The brand markings on the bottles scraped off. Her fingerprints on the watch wiped clean. This wasn't just hiding. This was a conscious and violent act against identity itself. The police had nothing. A body with no name, no face, no past. An intentional ghost. In psychology, we understand identity as an anchor. It is the narrative we build to make sense of ourselves and our place in the world. It provides continuity, purpose, and predictability. This woman had not just lost her anchor. She had meticulously sawed through the chain, link by link. The question was, why? The first breakthrough came 3 days later. 2 Samsonite suitcases traced back to the victim were found in a locker at the Bergen train station. Police hoped for an answer. What they found was a psychological explosion.
Inside was not a life, but a collection of lives, a wardrobe of disguises, non-prescription glasses purely for show, multiple tubes of eczema cream, perhaps a genuine affliction or another piece of misdirection, and wigs, many wigs. This was not a woman with a secret. This was a woman who was nothing but secrets. The self had fractured into a series of calculated performances. And then the core of the fracture. 8 passports, 8 different names, 8 nationalities, all with the same photograph. Geneviève Lancière, Claudia Tielt, Vera Jarlet. each one a carefully constructed lie, a facade built to navigate the world without ever being seen. The psychological energy required to maintain such a deception is immense. It creates a state of extreme cognitive load, where the brain is constantly working to keep the stories straight, to remember which name and which history belongs to which face in the mirror. It is a self-inflicted prison.
This was her facade. Using these identities, she had woven a path across Europe. Paris, Geneva, Hamburg, Rome. Always staying at the finest hotels, always paying in cash, always moving. She was a ghost in the machine of civilized society. The hotel staff who remembered her gave conflicting descriptions, a testament to her skill as a performer. Sometimes she was an elegant German antiquities dealer. Other times, a quiet Belgian who spoke broken English. She was a chameleon, adapting her personality to fit the name on her passport. Each check-in card is an artifact of a manufactured self, a performance captured on paper.
Which brings us back to this. For decades, this note was believed to be a spy's cipher. But the truth, when it was finally decoded, was more mundane and somehow more chilling. It was not a secret message. It was a detailed log of her movements. 022-028P was not a code. It was the date she traveled from Oslo to Paris. The complexity was a mask for a simple, obsessive need for order. This reveals the core psychological state: extreme compartmentalization. On the outside, she presented a fluid, ever-changing identity. But on the inside, she was rigid, organized, and deeply paranoid. She was tracking herself because she knew someone else might be tracking her too. This is the behavior of a person for whom existence itself is a threat. The chaos of her multiple lives was managed by an iron grip of control, a grip that could not hold forever.
But a mind cannot endure such a fracture indefinitely. A facade, no matter how well constructed, eventually cracks under pressure. The final items in this case file document that collapse. An autopsy revealed the women had consumed over 50 phenobarbital sleeping pills, a brand called Anomaly, enough to kill her several times over. But she did not die from the overdose. The soot in her lungs, a key finding, proved she was still alive, though deeply unconscious when the fire started. This was not a simple suicide. It was a ritual of erasure, a final, desperate act of control from a person who had lost all other forms of agency. The pills were to extinguish the consciousness. The fire was to extinguish the body. It was the final, desperate act of a person who had spent months, perhaps years, dismantling their own identity piece by piece. She had erased her name, her past, and her appearance. The only thing left to erase was her physical form. The leading theory, of course, is that she was an intelligence agent, a spy for Mossad or the Stasi or some other shadowy organization during the Cold War, that her mission was compromised and she was either eliminated or chose to eliminate herself before she could be caught. The Cold War context makes this plausible, but it is not a complete answer. But the spy theory only answers the what. It does not answer the why. The evidence in this box does not point to a failed mission. It points to a failed psyche. It documents the unbearable weight of non-existence, the paranoia of the coded notes, the fractured identity of the passports, the desperation of the disguises, and the final, violent erasure of the fire. She was not just a ghost to the world. She had become a ghost to herself. And the human mind is not built to withstand that. It will seek an escape. For the Isdal woman, that escape was oblivion. The official case remains open. Her identity, her origins, and her purpose are still buried in the past. The artifacts on this table are all we have. They paint a portrait of a mind under siege, but the cause of that siege remains a mystery. Which leads to the final unanswered question. Looking at this evidence, was she running from something? Or was she a weapon pointed at a target who simply broke under the strain? What do you, the consulting archivists, believe was her true mission?